Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome in Esxence. My name is Silvio Levi. I see a lot of people. I'm very happy for that and happy for the speakers. I'm so sorry because it's a long time. I would like to invite my guest and speaking about that point, what's about France? That is a very interesting question because I very often speaking with journalists especially, everyone there, every time they are quite surprised, you know, that France is not the best market for niche. And that is curious because France is a major supplier of niche. So the major number of brands are coming from France. The story, everything started mainly from France. UK had a little role also, but anyway, this France was very important. And everyone asked me, why that? I have my answer, but I do prefer to ask to French people. No, I will tell you later the answer. But solution, and it's easy to find a problem, it's difficult to find the solution usually, but that is, so but it's very interesting, I think, for every one of us understanding what the problem is and what potentially is the future. So the concept at the beginning is French, Italy, and Germany has more or less the same turnover in beauty business. Yes, beauty business is around from 9 billion, from 10 billion, 11 billion, more or less, all over the beauty business. The incidence of the business in niche is a little different in the three countries. The number of distributors is different. You can measure also how many distributors we have in Italy. We are close to more than 20. And in France, the number is less than 10. I can tell the number exactly, but in Germany, more or less more than 10. So that is what's happened for the market, and number of inhabitants are quite close. So please, we are very curious to listen to you, and I give you the opportunity to speak to the audience and explain why and what the future is. Thank you very much for coming.
Merci. Bonjour à tous. On va faire la présentation en français puisque nous sommes tous français. Nous allons parler de la France et il y a beaucoup de Français dans le public. Merci de vous joindre à nous pour évoquer donc, la place et l'avenir de la parfumerie de niche en France. Je me présente, donc, je suis Pascale Caussat, je suis journaliste indépendante à Paris. J'écris surtout sur l'industrie du luxe et de la beauté. Et j'ai le plaisir de signer un article dans le premier numéro de Nez, la revue olfactive, donc qui vient de sortir, c'est tout chaud. C'est déjà en vente sur Internet et à partir du 14 avril en librairie, en France et on espère un peu partout en Europe. Alors, je vais présenter nos intervenants par ordre alphabétique. François Duquesne, vous êtes fondateur de Beauty Enterprise. Vous représentez des marques comme Aides de Venustas et le Cercle des parfumeurs créateurs. Renata Faizutdinova, je fais l'effort de prononcer le nom de famille. Après, on dira Renata. Donc, vous êtes fondatrice et directrice de la parfumerie Sens Unique à Paris. Et distributeur de parfums aussi. D'accord. François Hénin, vous êtes propriétaire des parfums Jovois et de la parfumerie Jovois à Paris, qui a également une parfumerie en franchise au Mans. Voilà. Et enfin, Johann Vitrey, vous avez plusieurs cordes à votre arc. Vous êtes fondateur de la société Sésame, donc éditeur de parfums rares entre l'Europe et le Moyen-Orient. Vous êtes également enseignant à l'École supérieure du parfum à Paris. Et vous êtes membre du comité technique du salon Esxence. Bien ça. Alors tout de suite, on attaque le vif du sujet. Comme je le rappelle dans l'article, il y a à peu près 300 parfumeries qui distribuent des marques de niche en Italie et environ 40 en France. Dans le même temps, on peut voir sur le salon, il y a presque 200 marques qui sont exposées. Alors, est-ce qu'il y a trop de marques de niche? Est-ce qu'il n'y a pas assez de parfumerie de niche en France? Où est le problème? Et pourquoi est-ce si difficile au pays qui finalement a inventé le pays de grâce et le pays de la parfumerie moderne, pourquoi est-ce si difficile en France de distribuer des marques alternatives? François Duquesne, je commence par vous. Vous connaissez très bien les États-Unis, où il y a un vrai marché de la niche. Vous avez dirigé l'artisan parfumeur aux États-Unis, donc vous avez une vision internationale. Donc pourquoi il y a si peu finalement de lieux pour acheter des parfums alternatifs en France?
Thank you. Well, since you talked about America, I'm going to switch to English. Is that okay? Maybe for both of you. There is a market for niche in France. It's not that there is no market. It's just a different, the distribution structure is just different. If you see all the different countries, they all have different networks, distribution networks. In Italy, obviously, the independents are very important. In France, the chains, such as Sephora and company, have taken over. In America, the department stores represent still a very important force. The business model of having also a little boutique, like a brand boutique, I'm talking about like when I was in charge of l'Artisan Parfumeur, we had like over 25 boutiques worldwide. And in Paris itself, there was 6 of them, and in France, 10 of them. So that does also represent a distribution network. So when I hear people saying, well, there's no niche distribution in France, it's bullshit. Because there is a big market. It's probably one of the biggest in the world. If you make the addition of all the different brand boutiques in Paris, there is a golden triangle around François Hénin's boutique, like in the first arrondissement. You name it, Atelier Cologne boutique, Francis Kurjan, Frédéric Machin, Annie Goutal, Guerlain, Chanel, Dior, with their own parfum boutique, etc. That's huge. So there is a very active market in France, and especially in Paris, for luxury fragrances. I hate the word niche. I'm sorry, it doesn't mean anything to me, niche. Niche is, you're a good dog, you stay in your little niche, you're a little independent, you keep struggling. There's no niche, okay? It's luxury, it's a different experience. It's experiencing perfume differently. So, and it can be an independent house, or it can be a large corporation buying an independent house, like it happens currently. So, to come back to distribution, don't worry, there is a distribution in France. It's just a different one. And for the independents like you, who are very courageous, it's a huge challenge. But there is, I'm sure, if you exist today, it's because you have found your clientele also that doesn't only shop with brands, but also with multi-brands. Okay, and last, because but I don't want to take too much of the parole, the challenge, the challenge is that the succursalist, so the vertical organization like the Sephora, Marionnaud, etc., they have taken over also all the little independents. So you don't have the independents like you have, for instance, in Italy. But these guys are, these chains are changing. They realize there is a market out there. And look, Sephora is opening some departments to niche. And I created a brand for a chain, which is the 4th largest. It is called Beauty Success. But also finding its way to offer to their clients alternative fragrance and different shopping experience. So,
I think we should ask the retailers now. We should ask the retailers their opinion. Okay, we switch to English now. So, Renata, do you think there are too many niche brands? I think it's the problem for you and François.
Well, I think there's never too many of anything unless it's problems. And then I think, I'm sorry if the French are going to throw stones at me after the conference, because I guess I'm the only non-French speaker here. But the thing is that I think that the French, they like to be safe, to start with. We love being safe. We still remember the Marie Antoinette times, and we would even be keen on sticking somewhere over there and not be too much moved around. And so when everybody's speaking about the French market in terms of niche or artistic fragrance, or call it whatever you want, I think we're talking about multi-brand retailers, because any niche brand can enter there. I absolutely agree with François, because it is the kind of the network that nobody thinks of, which would be the independent boutiques of the different brands. But when we talk about this kind of things during the conference in a Milan fair, of course, none of the brands who are sitting in here cannot go and sell themselves at Diptyque store or Artisan Parfumeur store, which is normal, and that's why it's a kind of network that doesn't interest us that much anymore. But then the funny thing is that these brands who already have these stores are the brands that interest the French multi-brands. I'm not talking about Paris right now, because in Paris there are so many that I guess that we kind of take other brands. I'm talking about Provence. And what happens in other countries is, I can talk for Russia, for example, because I do have some experience in the Russian market, is when everybody sold selective perfumes, which would be the Dior and Chanel and everything, and then the chain markets would, chain stores would come, everybody had to switch to something else to survive. And what happens in France is that we don't want to switch to something else. When everybody is opening stores like Diptyque and Artisan Parfumeur, they open their stores, the French feel safer with this. And we do want these brands. And unless the other brands open up or go into different stores, we kind of don't want them. Look at what happens. Why is there a fair in Milan and there is no fair in France? I think this is the kind of the question that we keep asking ourselves since some time now. And we did try to make a little fair, a big fair, but with a little niche representative with Johann in September in the Beyond Beauty. And look at what the brand said, is we'll go and see how it happens this year. And if it's good, we'll probably come and participate in it next year. And when everybody says this, how do you want it to be good? How do you want people to come and say, yeah, there were so many good brands and it was a big success and everything? Of course, afterwards, everybody said, well, it was the first experience, it wasn't so good, nobody was there, but were you there to do it? How do you want it, how do you expect it to happen? I think that's more or less what happens in the multi-brand niche market in France, is that everybody's waiting for somebody else to make the step. And if somebody else makes the step, they're like, it's a shame it wasn't me. But how do you want it to be you? I think that François will agree with me, because he also takes big steps, opening, opening in Paris, opening in Provence. I think we have more or less the same experience in Paris and in Provence. He has the experience in Le Mans, I have the experience in Caen, which are completely different cities and completely different markets from Paris. And believe me, there is no touristic clientele to save you in Provence. And that's the thing. Because when tourists come, they're eager, they want to know something new. When the French come, they're like, I don't think I know any of these brands. I don't understand you. Well, do you need to know me to understand me? I don't think that's something that happens in Italy. And I did want to say a couple of words about the press market as well. Thank you for this. This is the first thing. Because everybody's saying, yes, there's no fragrance market in France because there are no retailers, because there are no distributors. But is the press with us? Is the communication with us? I mean, you only have the big magazines who only want to talk, not only, but they can mostly talk about the big brands. How do you want the smalls? Or I don't even want to call them small. How do you want the artistic brands to get through this if nobody's there to help? The retailers want to be secured by the press wants to be secured by the distribution, and the distribution doesn't exist because there's no retailers or press. And I think I'm talking too much.
That's very French.
You're very Frenchy. So maybe François Hénin would like to, I'm sure, is desperate to say something about, are the French too conservative for new brands?
I think my dear colleagues are very right. you have a market, the one that you described. We are looking the one that you talked about, which is multi-brand. There are a little bit more than 40 stores in France that are selling niche brands today. Of course, if you talk about your store or our stores, it's very visible because it's an assortment dedicated to the niche. But we've counted about 250 doors in France that at some point are selling at least one or two niche perfume brands. François is right. The French model is very easy to understand. In one hand, you have the mono-brand store. This is the business model in France. So you have, when you are a brand, you create your flagship stores, and there is no tradition of multi-brand stores. On the other hand, you have the typical French model, which is all those chains that bought out or put out of business the traditional retailer, the way you have them in Italy, for example. And I think you have an association of independent stores in France that counted a few years ago 357, more or less, independent stores. But these stores are selling the same story as the one you find in the chains, but not with the same tools. They don't do push on your phone with 25% discount if you come to see us tomorrow. And they don't have the leverage and purchase that the chains have. So I think the question here is, how come we say that in Italy there are hundreds of stores with a multi-brand assortment and we don't have that in France? Our dear colleagues have tried and are trying to test, probably like the same as we do. We are trying to test how the heart of France, a medium-sized city, will react to a multi-brand assortment, not a selection of brands in a traditional store where you will have all the big names. We probably will talk about the future of niche later, but no, there are much more stores in France who are open to have these brands in their stores. We have a very organized market. The market is getting very mature as we speak. On the first hand, you have all those big brands which are being bought out by groups, and the fear, it was a discussion we had last year, the fear that, which I find is an opportunity to make things clear in the market, that probably big groups are going to buy this DNA, which they don't want to build anymore. So it's easier for them to buy a company and put the brand in their system, open store, sell it. And it's an opportunity for those brands also. I'm not one of those Che Guevara of the perfumery who is going to say, oh, they are sold to a group, it's gone, it's not going to be what it used to be. So we have many subjects today. I don't want to lose you, but the market is getting organized. Now, how can we open new stores in France? What is the model? Many subjects, probably we're going to talk about it.
So Johann hasn't talked yet. Johann, when I talked to you before this conference, you said that for you the niche was really, the real niche was a work of art, was really artistic perfumery, and that it should be almost supported by the state to make it, sustainable. Is that your idea?
Yeah. First of all, hi to everyone. How many French do we have here in the assistant? Everybody is French almost, or? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's the first answer. Just before answering you, it's and just to come back on what my colleague said. They said it all. Before to talk about future, as said François, we first have to make sure about what we are talking about. What is niche? Because to talk about future of the niche, okay, but what is niche? Do the niche have a future or not? My first answer is that we don't have only one niche. And especially in our country, we do have to really separate the different categories. And François, you were saying that in the heart of France, in some smaller city. You all open like franchise to bring something not different, but not the whole selection of the one you have in Paris, because you need to bring only what that part of France wants to have as product. And for me, it's because we have a country, of course, very mature because of all the past we have with the big brands, with the big group, and but we also have a country with very difference between the culture and the biddings and in each region, in each city. If you compare to Germany, to Italy, they have big region, big cities, but it's almost the same model in each city. In France, it cannot be. Look at Printemps and Galeries Lafayette. They are never in the same city because it's a different way to sell. And in one city, you have, I'm from Nancy, and in Nancy, we have Le Printemps. In Metz, they have Galeries Lafayette because it's not at all the same public, the same clientele. So before to talk about the future, you have to make sure that in which segment of the niche is your brand. In which segment of the niche do you want to open a store? In which segment of the niche do you want to be a distributor or an agent? Because it's a different language, it's a different approach. I was telling you last time over the phone that it's true that for me, it's my opinion, only mine. What I consider a niche brand is something that has nothing to see with the marketing. They have to follow some marketing rules, but they are not following the marketing plan with one launch a year, with some codes, with the size of packaging. This is not niche anymore for me. And in our country, in France, being a niche brand means not being everywhere or want to be everywhere. It's to be only in the store that will accept that kind of product. And if you look at their product at their selection, she's in Le Marais, he's in Place Vendôme, they don't have the same brand at all. And it's not a term of exclusivity. Because Paris is big enough to have two stores that could have the same brands. But what works at François stores won't work in Le Marais, because it's a different population. I was visiting Milan 2 days ago. If you go to visit a store and you go to another one, 500 meters far from this one, they have the same brands because they all look for everything. It's not our culture. We all want something special. We want to be sure about big brands, but when we are ready to go for something different, it has to really stick with our bidding, and I'm so different than someone else. And so we want to be different. In Britain, they want to speak their local regional language. In Corsica now, they just speak Corsican in the assembly. So we are very special, very specific in expression. So this is why we need to make sure to separate, and this is why I'm happy that now we have some and different fairs in Paris. We have Tranoï. Tranoï, it's good for a category of store, for a category of brand. Alternative, it's something, again, different. It will be in Le Marais, so it has to also stick with that area if we want to success. So that's the reason why. So this is why it's very difficult for our journalists, for our media, to make some articles in our industry, because, okay, from where to start? Where to finish? So we had this discussion last year also. They were asking me in that kind of conference what I'm thinking about the fair. I'm very happy about the fair. I'm here every year. But I would love, and that might just wish, to make some different division. What is, I compare it last year as, the car show exhibition with the concept car. So you have some experimental brands, you have some patrimonial brands, you have some, and then you answer the bidding and the wish of each store. Because seeing 200 brands make myself confused and my clients confused. Because I'm looking for a category of niche. And for me, niche has to be a plural word. They are different niche.
So if we want to speak about the future of the niche again, François Duquesne, for instance, for you, the future of niche brands lies in, they need to have the same business model as luxury brands. That's your opinion.
I think it's
same store, self-stores.
Yeah, I think we have to see it on the consumer perspective or customer perspective. So where do people go shopping? And why do they go shopping in specific place or not? People who look at fragrance, who are into fragrance, who are passionate about fragrance, they go to their favorite store. What happened in France is that you had a lot of independents that become chain, and the heart and the success of these stores was the service that was offered. I remember growing in France, the experience of going to a perfumery was always great because you had Madame Michu who was having his boutique, and she was great. Great service. She always made you discover new fragrances. And it didn't matter if it was a large company or a small company or a known brand or unknown. It was just a service. It was at the center of that. So then the customer experience came through chains like Sephora. You ask the French people, like consumer, and they tell you, my favorite place to shop is Sephora because it's fun, the music is great, etc., etc. So it's a great environment. So in America, it's the department store, etc. So the independence, because here when we talk about niche, I listen to Johann and I understand, okay, talking about being independent. So if you're an independent, you have no access to this change, and you cannot have a rep also being in all these little boutiques. So what you have to do, and I remember as I was heading l'Artisan Parfumeur, always asking myself the question, but why do we have like these company-owned stores that make actually over 70% of the business at the time, like 15 years ago? It was a necessity for the founder of l'Artisan Parfumeur, Jean Laporte. Jean Laporte said, there's no way I will be able to be sold through these channels because I'm not going to reach the consumer. So it was a necessity to open the company-owned stores. And at the end of the day, it's actually the same, an equivalent profitable business model, because when you sell direct to consumer, your margin is nice compared to selling it to a retailer. How much chunk do you take from us? Okay, and then it's normal because he has to pay a rent and people, etc. So make the math. It was a necessity for all these independent guys, Patricia de Nicolai, Annie Goutal, l'Artisan Parfumeur de first, but also ask Fabrice and Eddy who started with Le Labo. It's a retail concept because it's a necessity. Because no one wants this brand. No one. So what's changing today is that you have crazy retailers like you guys that open multi-brands boutique that are now a distribution alternative. And there's also even the Sephora, etc., opening niche departments. And there's like probably other projects. And there's Le Printemps, the department stores now being fully dedicated to these brands. So you have a fresh wind coming. I want to be very optimistic there. Yet, it's all about scale. And that's what you learn in mature market. It's the same in America. It's a question of scale. So how do you financially survive in these environments? Like, even if you have to go through your own boutique or you have to partner with department stores or retailers, it's all a question of scale. We are not in a business where you invest and you have the return on your investment like within a year. It's impossible. You are building a brand, you are going for the long run, and you're going to lose your shirt during the first 5 years. That's what it is in building a luxury brand. We say in French, Paris ne s'est pas construit en un jour. You don't build a luxury brand in one day. Okay, you build a legacy. It takes so much time. So, Rome was not built in one day. I'm sorry. So, but my point is, it's a question of scale as well in France. If you're a small independent brand, can you survive at Sephora? No, because you compete with people who have like the tools and the money to invest in what it takes to be successful through these channels. So why is Serge Lutens, which is a niche brand, for your definition, sold in 250 doors in France? because there is Shiseido behind, you know. So that's a question of scale. That's a question of having money to last, and a question of having money to invest in the formats, in the trainings, in the people that spread the word, the people that transfer the emotional connection that the creator has put in the bottle, transfer it to the consumer. Look, when François is in his boutique, the sales double. You know, because he's just, you know, and I'm sure Renata as well. So it's a question of people, and you need time. It's like in a religion, you know. You have to, you know, the people. It's with faith that they go, you know, with these brands. It's not a system. It's with faith. So it takes time to find the right people and the partnership and the right retailer. But France, like any other market in the world, when there is a sophisticated, educated consumer, certes conservative, is still a good market.
Yes, all the brands you mentioned, you said L'Artisan Parfumeur, it was taken over by Puig, who owns Paco Rabanne. Le Labo belongs to a Estée Lauder.
Which is a great thing, because they're going to give them the scale.
That's the point. Do you think the future of the niche is to be taken over eventually by a big group to have the strength?
Some of them.
Yeah, so...
I mean, either that or to fund themselves, such as Atelier Cologne, who attracted investors.
May I? I think that what we're talking about and why the brands are being bought out by the bigger groups is because these are the brands who know where they're going. You have so many, because in the very beginning you asked the question if there are too many brands. I don't think there are too many brands, but today there are more brands who don't really realize where they're going and what they're doing. And there's a little bit more brands who are created just to be in the niche market, because I guess they heard somewhere that it's cool and it's probably taking over the market today, because that's what they say in the news and everything. So why not create my own brand? This is great. But now when they come to the retailer and they need to say why this brand was created, what's the idea behind, and what's the general concept, whatever. I'm not talking about the blah blah, but the heart of the brand. Not everybody is able to answer this question. And if some brands were taken over by the groups, I guess it's because they have that very hard heart, and the groups know that they can go somewhere with it, because I guess they're not stupid either to invest in something which is kind of not very stable. And what I wanted to say with it is that today you have some brands who start doing things. I absolutely agree with François that you have to think long-term and not short-term. Who think short-term, and they're like, okay, I couldn't do it in 1 year. Let's change something. Let's change completely the strategy, and let's start it over. And they keep starting over every 2 or 3 years until it's completely blurred, and until they have no more image or vision of what they're doing and why they're doing this. So I guess when we're talking about their brands and their brands, there's niche and there's niche. There's niche which was created like art. I do agree with Johann. There's niche which was created with a big idea behind it, which can be finally taken over or not taken over. And I do agree that to build a brand, you need time, but you also need this idea, and I guess the perseverance or being coherent or something like this. I didn't create any, so I don't know yet exactly. But you also have a whole lot of brands which are out there and which didn't find yet why and what they're doing out there. And I guess these are the brands which have a little bit trouble of getting into different stores, just like Johann said, because they don't know where they are going. And in France, it is important to know where you're going, because you cannot go everywhere. So maybe this can be a kind of solution to the brands who are striving to go out there.
I would just add something, I'm sorry, is those brands that you named have been successful and taken over by large groups, or all what they all offer a unique customer experience at point of sales level. And that's why Estée Lauder, for instance, was interested to take Le Labo, because they offer a consumer experience that is unique at store level and that can be multiplied in department stores, etc., etc. And I think what you guys retailer, when you select a brand, is just like, okay, has to be well made, etc. But it has also the one who offer a unique consumer experience because there is like something very special, very unique. There is an emotional connection going through that. That's where it makes the difference. I think so.
Johann, what do you think? Because you think that to be an alternative brand, you have to be artistic, and is that compatible with big group, with return on investment and everything?
I think I'm crazy. We have a different way to think and to talk about our industry, but that's nice, and this is why we have such an event with so many brands. And this is also why there are so many brands. On my point of view, it's and to make a link for the future between the retails and the brands. I have some of my students here, and in the course of strategy marketing, I try to teach them that they have to be very different. They have to think differently, they have to bring their creativity, they have to bring their originality, they have to put their DNA, what they have in the heart, what they have in mind. And for me, the future, I hope the future would be with stores like Jovoy, like Sens Unique, like Nose in Paris, having a large selection of niche brands to be an embassy, as you are in Jovoy, as you name your store, and you're right, you are an embassy. That gives you the credibility and the legitimacy, assuming this role of embassy, to have the different category of niche in your store. But then we are talking about Paris. Paris is not France. Out of Paris, the future should be different franchise, like Jovoy, like Sens Unique, having in each city what this city is waiting for. But also, I really do hope, of course, it's a matter of finance. And I'm not talking about, with all my due respect for the brand new names, like L'Artisan and all those brands which I bought now from the big group. Are we still talking about niche? For me, that's my point of view. I'm not talking about niche for those brands for the last 5 years. I mean, when Juliette Azegen came in the picture, that was a niche brand. And all the other ones that were there before, they were not niche anymore because they were bringing what was niche. They were saying, by the message they sent to everyone, okay, look, all the other ones, they became commercial, and now we are the niche. When I saw the launch, I was living in Dubai at that time, and when I saw the launch of Juliette Azegen, I was like, wow. And this is what gave me the wish to work in this category, to say, this is a brand that brings something, not a business model, not only money. They take risk. And then, since this brand, we got some new brands that brought some revolution, something new. And then I do hope that the brands will come now with their own shop, like art. I'm talking about art. And when you are a painter, you show your painting in a gallery with only your collection, because it's coming from your art and it has nothing to see with the painting of someone else. Sometimes it's good to have one of your painting in a museum, like you have many brands in an embassy like Jovoy, to show to the large public, international public, what is rare perfume. But in addition of that, don't all go to Taizo in Cannes, don't all go to Tanagra, don't all go to Soleil d'Or. It's not niche anymore if you are all in this. You are all saying that Sephora, it's too big, too much brand, but you repeat exactly the same, going in all in the same store, having 2 staff in each boutique who have to sell 20, 30, 40 brands. You cannot, the stores cannot be all Jovoy, can be all Sens Unique. Paris is something special. Open your own shop. Open some boutiques, some corners. Do it on your own. Be different. This is what, in my opinion, what should be the future of the niche, if we want to still call it the niche. If you look at LVMH, they opened this Small is Beautiful, this is the name of the boutique, Small is Beautiful, in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. 4 brands. 4 brands from the LVMH group. Fendi, Givenchy, Guerlain, Kenzo. Only 4 brands, without packaging, without anything. They offer you a coffee. They give you a very warm welcome. They are going to show us what is niche. Come on, guys, LVMH. They are teaching us what is niche. I'm so sad about that. Because if I want to show to my students a real niche model, I have to bring them there. Otherwise, I have to go to Frédéric Malle, boutiques and others in Paris, and then what they will tell me, come on guys, please, it's not niche anymore. And they are right if they say that.
Can I ask you a question?
You can, of course.
About small is beautiful.
Yeah.
You're saying that they're presenting just 4 brands. I guess that should mean that they are well presenting their universe. They're offering you coffee and they're not exposing packaging. What's the difference of them with Chavoy, who's there since a long time, and Sensibilic, which is there since a long time then?
Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Who's showing niche to
I'm not
whom?
saying it's different than what you are doing in Paris, you guys. And I really thank you for that and congratulate you for that. I'm talking about Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and I compare it to all other cities in France that are not making the same model. If you go to Lille, if you go to Cannes, if you go to Nice, if you go to Bordeaux, they all try to copy you guys. They are not Paris. Why they all want to... How many retailers from France we have in this fair? None of them. Because they all think that they just have to go on Jovoy website and, oh, if it's at Jovoy, that means it's a good brand. No, guys, Jovoy is something special. It's in Paris, international public.
No, I don't agree. We do a great coffee.
So I'm not comparing Small is Beautiful with you. I'm comparing Small is Beautiful with the boutique out of Paris that are not giving us the chance to show to the public, to the French public, we are talking about France, what is the niche industry. This is my opinion, my only opinion, but and I do hope that in the future, so if the boutique don't give you the chance to express yourself, do it on your own. Open your boutique and do it on your own.
Can I ask a question to the public? Are there any French retailers in the public? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, any? Are there French distributors? Because I'm trying to understand who's... Okay. I'm trying to understand who is interested in the French market. You're a distributor.
No, I'm actually a journalist. And I live in America, but I have a global audience. I have software.com. I know pretty much everybody here. France is, to the world, the capital of perfumery. So one of the things I was confused about during this discussion is this talk of brands. Because for me, a brand, I think with all due respect, I don't think of little micro startups. I do not call those brands. They may become, I think of François, the Françoise, some of the things you do. So my question, if I could just ask this, we use this brand in America very carefully. It's a promise delivered. It's a consistency of taste level. L'artisan parfumeur, oh my God, I knew Jean Laporte. And to your point, artistic. I don't understand the word niche, and I write for quote unquote a niche site. And please, I would like everybody's opinion on the word niche and the word brand, because this is confusing me coming from America, where we think France, and we still do believe that French is the road, all roads lead to France. So.
Well, thank you for saying the last phrase, because that came to my question. Where are the French in this? How many French are there? Well, there are some. Okay, thank you. So if you want to answer the what's brand, niche.
There are so many subjects today, I don't know where to start. Can we just, if you don't mind, Sunshine, can we come back on the first subject? I call her my Sunshine. Customer experience. Interesting. That is probably being studied by other companies. Interesting. Brands that need doors. A market which is getting mature, getting very structured, stores that exist, Taizo in Cannes, Tanagra in Nice, but they are the only store where you could imagine to sell your brand. Even though 2 steps away from Tanagra, you have a crazy lady who opened a small department there and is growing there. Okay, An artisan parfumeur is probably the brand who created or was at the origin, one of the brand at the origin of what is niche. Because he said, I'm not going to follow the business model of the marketing. I'm going to make a production, and when it's sold, it's finished. We are not going to run after numbers. We are going to make some small production. We are going to use some codes that we will see later with Serge Lutin's. One bottle. Well, you know all this story, where the niche come from. So now we have too many brands and not enough stores. That's the situation. What is going to be tomorrow? Okay, let's go back to the roots of the subject. In my store, you have four universes. You have the haute parfumerie, which is probably the expensive side of the offer. You decently can sell that in Le Mans city or Caen, and probably you can find a few brands in your store because you have that clientele. Even though we don't share the same clientele, we sometimes share the same clientele. But we probably don't have the same brands also. So, haute parfumerie, this is what is very visible, and because of our American friends, for example, since the model of selling perfume in a department store is basically to stiff, how do you say that? Spiff. Yeah, so what would you prefer as a salesperson in a store? Get 10% on a 1,000 euro bottle, or a 10% on a few $10 bottle? So the effort, I think, is it's interesting, because this haute parfumerie trend, which we see here, which is very expensive perfume, probably is showing its limits as we speak. But that's a big subject. So in the store, you have haute parfumerie, expensive, no limit. Sometimes we don't know why, but that's a big subject. Artistic perfumery, after our Italian friend who called niche perfumery artistic perfumery, which is more, let's say, an artistic director, house perfumer, who is going to deliver an artistic message. Olfactive studio. Traditionally, when you launch a perfume, you ask a photographer to take a pack shot, and you launch the perfume. She had the idea to take a picture and create a perfume out of the picture. That's artistic. You like it, you don't like it, I love it, but she has something to say. And then you have what we call the vintage, which probably is going to suffer in the next years. And now you have a new category, which is, to me, the molecular perfumery. We are in the so-called niche industry, where we claim all the day, in our stores, our perfume contains the most beautiful raw material in the world. You know, the best rose from south of France, if you find a place to grow them, and blah, blah, blah. And now there is this new trend, which is very interesting, which is synthetic perfume with a smile on the face. And you have a few brands here, and they're very interesting. And this new trend is breaking the ice and is opening the path to a new distribution, which is concept store. The big difference between Italy and France, we are ages, we are very, very old compared to you. We are, how do we call that, very late compared to Italian, to our European friends. You have real concept stores. I think this is the intention of Nose, by the way. This is a concept store in a specific area of Paris, where Jovo is more a perfume store, let's say. We don't have cosmetic, we don't have, and probably you are the same, a perfume store. But there is a new generation of perfume, which is probably trying to convince new clientele who do not wish to wear Mur and Musc their mother used to wear. You know, this is, it's between him and me. Sorry, just 5 seconds. You know my mother? This is the only perfume. My mother asked my father, I don't care, you have to go in Paris in a very impossible to find store, 74, I think, for Mur and Musc, and get that. This is the only perfume. Bon, never mind, we'll talk about it later. Yes, beautiful.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I may have not really a business advice, but I will ask a question to all of you. As I am a very passionate of perfume person, why don't you talk about the olfactic proposition? You just talked about Mûr et Musc, that is a perfume your mother asked your father to go to catch it in a boutique. Why? Because she liked the fragrance. And why don't we talk about the fragrance? What is the olfactic proposition of niche today? And of course, we talked about it. There is more brands today in this fair that it has last year and last before. Well, I'm interested about that, and I would like to have your opinion about this olfactive proposition of the perfumery, which is, I think, a very big deal and issue.
I love your question. I'm sorry, I'm shooting first. Thank you very much. I love your question, and I take it on the distribution perspective and also consumer perspective. That's a segmentation happening on the market that has happened in different markets, such as fashion. Okay, it's either perfume is a consumer good or it's a luxury good. And for me, this is like the real segmentation here. Are we talking about, like, it doesn't matter if it's niche, small, etc. It's a business model of being a luxury brand. A luxury brand has a creative direction. So it has a perfumery in-house, like Hermès, Esxence, Chanel, perfumery in-house. Chanel, luxury brand, okay? Chanel, is Chanel niche? Okay, maybe, if you want to call Chanel niche. But there is a creative direction. There is a creative parti pris. There are people out there that are bringing, like, I don't know, Angel, Thierry Mugler, when they came on the market 20 years ago, they're coming up with something that has lots of creative, and it's an olfactive proposition. So only fragrance houses, basically houses that have a business model that work like a luxury house, which is give the creative direction an important role in the product. And then you have companies that follow the business model of consumer good. And it's nothing wrong or nothing bad. It's just like, look at who runs the fragrance business, who runs the major license brands, etc. It's L'Oréal, it's Procter & Gamble, I mean, away from that, it's Coty. And what they apply is the business model of consumer good, which is like, we're going to make a product that is going to sell for a specific category and with consumer studies, etc., etc. And the artistic comes here actually at one point to legitimate, but at the end of the day, all what matters is a question of it's a fragrance that needs to fit for a specific market. So it's two different creative approach, and it doesn't matter if it's a small company or a big company. Obviously, a small company that follows the consumer good business model is dead because they don't have the scale. That's why if people do niche copying other fragrances, that's already a very bad start, because then it means like, has been done before, so there's no creative proposition. But it also means that people like Hermès, I mean, they do beautiful, like Chanel, les exclusives de Chanel, is absolutely beautiful collection. And how does a luxury company work? It's innovation, it's craftsmanship, it's quality. And it's about resource as well. You have to have this resource to tap to these beautiful ingredients, and you have to have the resource to pay these perfumers that are star perfumers. And you have to have the resource to package it into something beautiful. So that's my definition, and maybe it answers your question, what is niche? For me, niche doesn't exist. It's either it's a luxury product or it's consumer good.
So according to you, there is no room for independent creative perfumery. You have to have the backup of a financial backup from a group. And the same applies to
you can be independent,
retailers.
like Molecule, or like you said. No, it doesn't mean that. But you have, what they have, a very strong creative direction. You have a strong creative direction.
Yeah, but all the examples you give, like when you talked about Juliette as a gun, as a very strong concept, but now it's sold in Sephora. And when you say LVMH is opening its own new concept of perfumery shop. And again, it's a big group. It seems like there's no alternative to a big company behind all these innovations.
About artisanal perfume, and that's something important. I'm so sorry, I'm such a mic hog or something. Like there's an amazing perfumer sitting in this audience, Vero Karen. She makes everything by hand. She is her own creative director. So no one here has spoken about not hiring a nose. And it would be nice to, if you all as a panel can speak to artistic perfumery by artisans, people who actually create. And I would thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
No more talking for me after this.
I absolutely agree. Do you mind if maybe I'm too naive or young or too Russian or whatever, but I do understand the question of Juliette about the olfactive, because so far we're only talking what? Business models, product, luxury. Why do we call it luxury? It's a big luxury to buy something that somebody created just for you. Not because, well, because of the ingredients as well, of course, but not because of the person who runs the company or the group that runs the company or whatever artistic director is behind it, but just because I'm the only one to have it. Well, not this one, but a perfume bottle. And I think there's different kinds of luxury, and it's a big subject, and we're being a little bit lost between what you're calling brand, because to me, brand, I do agree that it's a promise, and it's a vision, and it's a philosophy, but it doesn't really have to be put in a book, in a business plan, or a business model. I don't think so. I do know that there's a lot of artists out there who have a great vision and great ideas, and who probably cannot find their way, because it doesn't probably exist in life that everybody finds their way. I'm sorry, probably there are going to be people who are going to hate me. But what I was going to say is that it's true, we're not talking that much about olfactory things. To come back to your question about brand, I think that we have a big responsibility with François, for example, because we are a brand as well. I'm not talking about Javoy as the perfume brand, but about Javoy as the store and Sens Unique as the store. Because when you say Sens Unique, you think about it, you kind of know what to expect in the store. When you think about Javoy, you know why you're going to Javoy. When you think about Marie Antoinette, you know exactly how you're going to be, how you're going to be welcome there. And we're all very different, and I guess we are brands without being brands. And I guess that by selecting different other brands or artists or perfume niche houses, perfume houses, artistic, whatever you call it, we kind of say to other people, to our final clients, this is what I love. If I selected it, it means that I love it. And if it costs that much or that much, I know why it costs that much or that much. Well, it's a kind of thing to me because I have to explain it to my clients very often. And if you say that it smells bad, I'm not mad at you or anything, but I will be able to explain you why you should still respect it, even if you don't love it. And I guess that's what artistic is about, and I guess that's what Juliette was talking about, because she's not into business, she's more into artist thing. But I guess that today, the artistic is it's not very easy to survive without the financial part. And it would be a perfect world where you could just, push a button, and then whatever you imagine could come true. So today, brands, they just have to, see what they want to do, what they can do. And to define niche, to me, it's something very personal. I don't think it's the same thing for everybody. Sorry? 15?
I'll just make that short.
Well, I think it does exist today, but everybody has his or her own niche. To somebody, niche would be the most luxurious
maybe. I remember. I remember Thomas, not to quote him, from Germany. Is probably one of the biggest player in the German market, and he always says there are brands you have to work with and brands you want to work with. And I think as a retailer, there are brands that pay the bills. We have to work with those brands, but we can afford the luxury to support. And I know that Renata, for example, in her store, she has some brands, and she's probably the only store in Paris to carry them. I'm thinking about Pierre Guillaume, for example, and this is where she will participate to support the more artisan, Andy Tower, Vero noses, to answer your question. My pleasure.
Yes, I have a question for the panel and for Silvio Levi, because we are comparing the two markets here, Italy and France, and the number of doors, or independent doors in Italy, 300, as a symptom or as an indicator how niche is, how big the niche market is in Italy compared to France. Now, I have the feeling, or I think in Italy, traditionally, the perfume market is more fragmented than it is in France, for instance. We have Sephora, Marionnaud, Nocibé. In Italy, we may have Limoni. I don't know if it's still out there, but then a very atomized market. Now, I'm wondering, amongst those 300 perfume shops, how many were opened in the last, say, 5 to 10 years? How many of them are basically have been existing for, say, 30, 40 years? So they come out of a tradition of it's old perfumeries, and thereby, or by the same token, is there a structural difference that cannot be obstacle in France that cannot be overcome, because the structure in Italy is traditionally very different from what happens in France. So maybe this is something that cannot happen apart from probably a concept store, because there's the financial risk for the individual perfume owners. I was wondering, if I were to open a niche perfumery as a retailer, how do I do it? I mean, where does the money come from? So it is a dim question, but is there any way to overcome this?
So thank you so much, because it was exactly what I would like to do to say. That is, first of all, it's not true that Italians do it better. Simply, someone forget that when I started to be involved in that business in '94, we had 15,000 doors in perfumery in Italy. 15,000. No other country in the world. And that's because we are the younger country in Europe, made of small countries with a lot of specialized shops. We had no chains, and the rural department store was practically nothing. So we have to select between 15,000 doors. My company was established in the '55. So incidentally, and you can see that, I'm the elder distributor in the niche in the world. No other company was established before. And we started since the beginning in the niche. In '94, we had 500 doors already opened. And today we have less than 300. And I wrote 15 years ago that the future of niche in Italy will be when we will maintain 170 doors. So there is a natural selection. We let someone. So what was the point? When I started my business, I realized that the maximum presence of niche, so-called niche, artistic, and then we come to the artistic niche, maximum presence on the shelf was 5%. So in Italy, the process was come into conventional stores and let some of them convert in a niche. Some of them succeed in, some not, some stay on bestseller, some instead are promoting also the difficult fragrances, the more interesting. To me, a niche perfumery shop has a duty. 100 clients, possibly, 100 people coming out from the store with different fragrances. Is a business made of slow moving, because we have to create. I used to say that a sales assistant in a shop have to celebrate a marriage between the fragrance and the client, because you have to let someone to choose what should be its own discreet ambassador. because you announce you. I used to say to the journalists, because it's a battle between myself and Roger Dove. I don't know who invented the story, but it's the story of the elevator. I used to say there is a lady coming in a 5-star hotel. Coming into the hall, there is a lady leaving the hotel, coming out from the elevator. The two ladies cross. You know the story. The two ladies cross. The lady coming in 5 milliseconds, knows how the heels, what the logo, what the hairstyling, what the movement, what the colors, and she get a movie in his mind, in her mind. Then he come into the elevator, very small space, and get the perfume. The lady left. Only two options. Or you are happy, or you are disgusted. No way. If you have confirmation of the message you give in the fragrance, you win a lot of points. So that is the marriage we have to celebrate. So what is the role of the ambassador, like all these guys, or everyone that create a multi-brand store, is to create a gallery of masterpieces and let the people to discover the masterpiece. So another point is, what's about the discussion about art in niche or art in masstige? There is no debate at all on artistic contents. I can tell that Chanel No. 5 is not a masterpiece or other creation by Guerlain. Why not? The point is distribution. So when you have a masterpiece and you don't mind at all who will dress it, and you use communication, advertisement, and you don't mind. When your target as a retailer is to sell 150 pieces of the same fragrance to everyone coming in, you are no more someone promoting the artistic contents in the fragrance. You don't mind at all. You are simply imposing. If artistic content is in the fragrance and you are capable to promote it and to let someone to discover it, and someone choose the fragrance for the contents, for the creativity, for the uniqueness, you made your work. So that is simply the difference. So France obviously has chains, has no private-owned shops. They have to rebuild something. So Paris today is the starting point, because finally we have more retailers that demonstrate to some potential colleagues that today you can invest and create a multi-brand niche store with a potential return on investment. In Italy, we had a process that started 60 years ago. And believe me, there was no one, the turnover in the clientele is less than 0.1% per year. And usually we are reducing the point of sale, not increasing. Now we can make a selection because we have hundreds of stores. In some other countries, we have dozens of stores and some pioneers. Now we are looking simply to improve it.
Thanks very much, and have a good day.